Hello and welcome everybody to the Board Game Barbecue, brought to you by Advent Games, More Than Meeples, and our Patreons. This is episode 338. You got Conor here in the hosting chair, and I'm joined by two other fellow. I always just feel like I'm saying, fellow great people. It's like, of course, great people. Like, I wouldn't still be doing this if it wasn't great people. But one person that has uprooted their life, and now because of where they've moved to, they're no longer going by their name. They're going by their more Ocker Aussie name, and that's Loz. How you going, Loz?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. It's not the most Australian one I've ever had. I've had Schlozzer,
Loz.
and for a while in high school, I'm not even kidding, Schlozdog Millionaire.
That's good. That's good. What is it with us Australians and extending names with nicknames? Tell us, those of you international listeners, extending nicknames. You heard the giggle, the cackle from none other than Joe, my fellow Victorian. Joe, please enter the conversation.
The Queen of Cackles himself.
the Queen of Cackles.
I'm here. It's nice to see you both. I'm very excited to talk about some games.
Yes. Me too. But let's just bear leave for a second, Joe. We had something really significant happen to both of us last week. The Switch 2 release.
Yes. I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
And actually, to be perfectly honest, I thought I'd be playing it a lot more. I haven't played it that much. What about you?
I've been playing it a little bit. So I've been going really hard on the new Mario Kart game.
It's been fun.
But I either have gotten older and thus worse at Mario Kart, or it's gotten harder because I've rage quit a few times. So
you're not older. That's not the case. Loz.
I think that our patience has gotten worse for hard games. I went back and played Crash Bandicoot. That is hard. That makes you want to rage.
Yep. Unforgiving. That's an unforgiving game.
And one thing I think I've talked about, like if I've done like video game Patreon podcasts and things like that, is the lack of autosaves in older games. So you just get used to it. It's like, I've gone into a new room, or I've gone past a story beat or something like that. It'll autosave. No, it's all gone. Like you've lost it all. So yeah, that's been good fun. Maybe something that we could do at PlayCon, and for there people can bring their Switches. We can have a little game while we're having a break. Could be fun.
Do I need to upgrade? That's the question.
Yes, always yes.
I'm going to be the voice of moderation. So I got it because I'm a huge Nintendo fanboy, and so of course I have to get it. I think its launch lineup is relatively weak. So unless you're like fanging to get it, I don't think you need to rush out and get it. It is a great system, and already I can see that Mario Kart is way more beautiful. Like the graphical fidelity is incredible compared to Mario Kart 8. They've done a really good job of changing up the formula and making it feel like a fresh game. But if you're looking for other games other than Mario Kart, I think it's relatively weak. And so you're not going to miss out if you're waiting a few months until other stuff comes out.
People should really stop discussing with you whether they should spend their own money, because like I said, my answer is always yes. Like, it's your money, you spend it. Treat yourself. But this isn't a Nintendo podcast as much as Joe and I would like it to be. It is a board game podcast. And Joe, let's address the elephant in the room.
Yes.
You have delved into a hobby of both mine and Lauren's. Lauren is, I think, the only person I think that's going to be more excited than Lauren is James. You have partaken in Magic the Gathering because of the new Final Fantasy set. Tell us what that's been like.
That's right, yeah. So I'm a huge Final Fantasy tragic. My favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy X, for those of you fellow Final Fantasy tragics out there. And so Wizards of the Coast did it. They got me with the Final Fantasy collaboration set. And so it was actually one of our ex-hosts, Dan, of the pod, who he reached out to me and was like, I'm going to go to a Magic the Gathering pre-release for the Final Fantasy set. Do you want to come with me? I was like, oh, sure. It'd be a good excuse to hang out. And then I looked into it. The artwork on the cards looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
I pre-ordered as many of the Commander decks available. And then I found the other two that I needed the other day, a couple of days ago now. And I'm concerned I'm going to get scammed because it was not eBay prices. It wasn't like $250 for a set. It was the usual $140 or whatever they're usually worth. So we shall see if I receive those. But it was my first time going to a Magic the Gathering pre-release. Have you guys ever been to a pre-release before?
Yes, I have. They're good fun.
It was really cool. I was really surprised at how well run it was. So I went to a Gameology in Brunswick here in Victoria. That's where they were doing the pre-release. And it's essentially like a little mini tournament where everyone gets this box of booster cards, booster packs. I think it has like, trying to remember now, maybe 7 booster packs in it, I think. And everyone gets that, and you have to put together a deck out of the cards that you pull from the boosters. Then you go into a little mini tournament, and the people who get the top 3 end up getting prizes, and it's stuff like booster boxes or booster packs, or, you know, so it's extra free stuff. I think it cost me about $60 for the ticket. You get what's called the pre-release booster packs as part of that, which is really fun. I had such a lovely time. I only knew Dan, and, you know, we sat across from this couple who were really nice. You know, in my mind, my thought of Magic the Gathering is like that old school, like comic shop, game shop kind of not very welcoming environment. So I was a bit nervous going into it, but it was not that. It was really nice. I just randomly was paired up with someone in the first round, and she was lovely. She kicked my butt. Dan was sitting next to me, and he was getting his ass handed to him as well. It was very amusing, but it was really fun. Like, you know, the people who were there would guide you on how to build the deck. You know, they'd tell you, oh, you need this many cards for this and this many cards for that. So I actually think if you're new to Magic the Gathering, if you're Magic the Gathering curious, I think a pre-release format is actually a really nice intro to Magic the Gathering. And even though people are like demolishing you, they were really nice about it, and it didn't feel bad. Like, it felt really friendly, and it was actually really diverse. Like, there was people of different ages, genders, you know, colors. It was a very nice crowd. So highly recommend.
Lauren, can you talk about some of the new mechanics that are in the new set? Because that's kind of what interests me. Like, I would say I'm as much of a Final Fantasy fan as, you know, the average video gamer. So how are they kind of linked the theme to Magic?
So that's a really good question. So my cards have all been sent to Sydney. James and I did a kind of YouTube style unboxing where he went through the cards one by one. And I was mainly just looking at, oh, that's Ballad Garden and that's Sin and really focusing on the art, reading a bit of the flavor text. I didn't get to see much in the way of mechanics, although I did see my Final Fantasy X Commander deck. Titus has an ability that has not been used in Magic before, which is to allow you to move counters between creatures.
Ah, cool.
I've not had a chance to look at much of the others, but like Joe, the art, voila, it's so beautiful. It's so awesome. Especially, I'm also a huge Final Fantasy nerd. My favorite is 8, but I do love 10 as well. But yeah, it's just incredible.
8 is that's
interesting
a
choice.
Yeah.
It's semi-nostalgic for semi-nostalgic reasons, but 8, 10, and 12 are probably my three favorites.
Yeah, cool. So I can speak to some of the mechanics that I thought were interesting and new from what I'd played previously. So obviously one of the features of Final Fantasy games is the summons, where you are kind of bringing these large creatures onto the battlefield and they're helping you in certain ways. And so they've implemented that in Magic the Gathering in a really interesting way, where summons are essentially creatures that you summon onto your battlefield in Magic. So it's one of the cards that you'll play out. And then they have a timed effect. So all summons have 4 stages that they go through, and each stage changes based on, you know, turn by turn. So in turn 1, they'll have this effect. Turn 2, they'll have this effect. And so it changes over time for some of them. I had one which was the Chocobo summon, which what it does is it adds +1 attack to all of your other creatures on the battlefield. And so that was an ongoing effect for 4 turns. And so that was the 4 stages it had. There are others that I'd seen where if you pay a certain resource cost per stage, then you get a stronger and stronger power, for example. So I think the one that I saw was Carbuncle, which was a green summon. It had better and better effects in terms of the different ways it would protect. Carbuncle, as a summon in Final Fantasy, would create a barrier across your party. And so it was very thematic in that way, in that you'd be able to protect your party or your cards in a certain way. So I thought that was really different. And I don't know if that's been done in other Magic the Gathering cards previously, like cards that have multiple stages. And then what happens is once you get to the 4th stage, it then gets discarded out of your battlefield. I don't know. Do you guys know? Has it happened in other Magic games?
They have had different things like quests or leveling up monsters or summon, like you call them summons, but things like that. So it's not brand new, but it's definitely something that suits Final Fantasy because you're leveling up a character or a summon. Like, that's what you do in the video game. So that it works. I mean, I would say it's one of the more suitable themes that they've used in terms of the whole set, right?
I will say as well, for the people that have played the video games, there's fantastic Easter eggs that I've already picked up in the cards. The Final Fantasy X set, Joe, has a card that is the scene of Titus and Yuna laughing, and the flavor text at the bottom just says ha 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 ha.
It's so good.
So brilliant.
So good. So
Which
good.
means nothing if you've not played the game, but
No.
I think there's just things that are there really just for Final Fantasy fans,
Yeah.
and I loved that about it.
But I also think, Dan isn't a Final Fantasy fan at all, and he really enjoyed it and could appreciate the art on the cards and appreciate the way things synergize together. Yeah, I had a blast. I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did. Even though I lost all of my matches, it was really nice, really welcoming. Do you guys know mid-set, do they do those sorts of tournament type things where you build a deck and it's more of a level playing field because you've all got the same constraints? Do you know what I'm talking about? No.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, so are you talking about maybe like doing a draft?
Yeah,
or
is that what it's called?
So where you effectively in a draft, you each open a booster pack and you take a card and you pass it around. But there's also names, what you're talking about, they do as well. So you just have booster packs and you open them up. And there's probably a bit of a power imbalance because you could obviously pull like a really amazing card, and that someone else doesn't. So yeah, they do have those. I'm pretty sure they do have those types.
Yeah, like a little
sessions.
mini tournament. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, so I would say if you've been curious about Magic the Gathering, were worried or scared to go and seek out interacting with other Magic players, I think the pre-release was a really fun way. And it was being in my local game shop. It was small, community focused. There was like maybe 15 people in the room. So it was a very nice way to do it. So if there's a future set that's coming out, sign up to a pre-release if you're interested. The other thing I'd say is at PlayCon, we're going to have some Magic the Gathering stuff going on, and it's going to be a very friendly environment to try it out as well.
Lauren, tell me a little bit about Daybreak.
So this is a lovely cooperative design. Daybreak, which has come out a couple of years ago, is themed around environmentalism and reducing carbon emissions. Love the theme. It's got a very clean aesthetic. I don't know if you've seen the board. And I only played this solo, but you create stacks of cards with icons that will ramp up the powers. And you're just trying to combo actions to basically get a net zero emission, which it was really interesting. It's a very simple game. Standard Matt Leacock. I like that he's departed a bit from the pandemic. It's not as if, carbon's spilling all over the world. It's a classic kind of, if this thing happens or this thing happens or this thing happens, you lose. So you're just dealing with a few of those competing things. Seems like it would be fairly solitaire. Everyone's got their own little tableau puzzle, but I really liked it. I think it's probably a drop too easy for me to want to keep coming back to, but I think the art's really nice. I think the design's really nice. It's really simple. I would say it's a similar weight to Pandemic, although with a lot more iconography and cards. So I don't think a lot of the iconography is necessarily intuitive and a perfectly pleasant time. It's also on Board Game Arena. If people want to try,
cool.
I reckon you could whip out a game of that in 20 minutes if you wanted to give it a whirl solo, and maybe a bit longer with some people. But it was good. I don't think it's better than Pandemic, but I think it's really, really solid. And especially for people who like that environmental theme.
Yeah, I'm digging the fact that like with the cards and effectively getting more powerful cards by having those icons at your slot on the top. That looks really cool. Something that's in my wheelhouse.
You can play cards either to the back of that stack to increase its power or to the front and change it.
Ah, cool. Yeah. That's a neat
You
twist.
could also play something to the front, activate that stack, and then if you've got more cards in your hand, play something to the front again. And if you can, activate the stack again. So what I did like about it was this little jostle of, am I ready to cover this power just yet? Or looking at my hand going, okay, I'll cover it with this power and then immediately cover it with the other, because that first one I get to activate once and then it's going to help power up that second. So there's nice little kind of combos and considerations of how you sequence your actions, which was like a cool part of it. And I think, maybe I need to look into it. Maybe there are ways to ramp up the difficulty that would make that part of it maybe more puzzly. But I felt like it didn't matter super which way I went because I was going to make it anyway. So maybe I just need to ramp it up a bit. But yeah, really cool ideas in there for sure.
So on the right-hand side of the board, there's a thermometer. So I'd imagine that's the countdown track, the same as you've got the virus or the outbreak track in Pandemic. Is that a similar function?
Yeah, exactly right. So you've got things that will offset carbon. So you're all different countries that will create carbon through your energy, through your different, if you've got more transport, more housing, whatever, and those are all going to create carbon. And then there are things in the world that you can, plant more trees and create more hydro plants that will absorb some of that carbon emission. So at the end of the round, you kind of see how much of it you can absorb, and any remainder goes to that kind of global warming indicator. And if that ever reaches the top, then you lose.
Yeah, cool. And then there's obviously the 4 tracks within that track for the different number of players.
Yeah.
Because you've got so the carbon comes out. Is it like the card flip with Pandemic? Like, so it's a set number every time?
No. So you've got these boards. There's lots of little things to consider, which I didn't really get into, but you've got your own country has this much housing demand, and so you need this much energy to supply to these houses. And originally that's not clean energy. And so each of those kind of, fossil fuel energy sources emits a carbon. You've also got things like transport and things like industry, which on your personal country player board contribute to the global carbon. So you're trying to manage that to make sure that you're not a huge contributor to the world, but at the same time contributing to the projects that are going to help offset it.
Yep.
The thing on the side, though, those are all sorts of natural disasters that can occur. There's a dice that is absolutely cursed that can cause all of these events to trigger, but multiple can happen when they reach this kind of tipping point, and there's floods and fires and all sorts of things. So it's part of that end of round, it hits the fan and everything is terrible.
Yep. Cool. The stuff that you all love in Pandemic.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
So it's got the same DNA, I think, in that way.
Yeah. Nice. So that's Daybreak. So that's a cooperative game. It can also play solo. So it sounds pretty good. I'm just going to quickly talk about, I was lucky enough to have Sarah teach me Mage Knight, and I had never played it before. So we didn't get through a whole lot of it because it was later at night, and we pretty much did a tutorial, and Sarah might have got some rules wrong, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, man, that is a tight game. For a game that's supposed to be set around having an adventure, leveling up your hero, that's almost secondary to the puzzle of getting the right cards in your hand and being able to sort of deal with the threats that are going on around you. Like and then there were so many times where we'd like play out our hand and be like, no, I can't do that because I had to use my crystal for that one. I had to do this for that, or spend that for that one, spend that to do an extra like random attack. And there were so many times where we were like, oh no, I can't do that because of this or that. Like, it was really good. So there's obviously the different card colors that you need to use that provide attacks or movement or whatever you're doing. And the fact that you got to, you play out, you don't have to play out your whole hand, but it behooves you not to, because if you don't, you might be sacrificing something in that turn. And I liked the little bit of asymmetry that was happening with your hero card. So you had one particular card that kind of tied into your hero, and then how you leveled up your hero was also asymmetric as well. I did not play it enough to give any more than just a really brief sort of tip of the hat. This was really cool, but I am looking forward to either starting again and playing through a whole scenario or finishing off the one that we're doing. And Sarah said to me, well, maybe we'll just start it again because we're probably going to lose anyway. And I was like, well, that doesn't fill me with a whole heap of confidence and makes me feel like a bit of a chump. So yeah, Mage Knight, obviously a classic, just one of the greatest games of all time. I'm finally glad I got it off my bucket list, even though I didn't play it. Anyway, enough of the caveats.
So I'm interested what you thought of that hand management puzzle, though, because you're right, it's so tight. What I like about it is that because the game is sandboxy enough, you never feel too constrained with the cards that you have. It always feels like there's a few good approaches that you could take with the cards.
That's how I felt. And probably one comment or one observation I made, and that's because it is an older game, is I think if it was, and I don't know if it would take away from it, there is a limited number of things that you can interact with on the board, but I feel like that's intentional, because if you didn't have that, you would then lose maybe some of the tightness of the hand management or something along those lines. So yeah, there's definitely enough to do with your hand of cards, but yeah, it's clearly influenced a lot of the new adventure games that are out today, while also having that cards management type of situation. Joe, you're sort of like nodding along. Are you interested in playing this at all?
Yeah. Of course, I've been Mage Knight curious forever since it was first talked about on the pod, but I think it's just intimidating. I'm intimidated to learn the game. I'm intimidated to ask someone to teach me the game because it's so big and so many moving parts. So So I think it's one of those games that I think if the stars aligned and someone was willing and able and ready to teach, I'd be keen to give it a go. I just don't think I'd ever own this or get it to the table very much if I had it.
It feels a little like a lifestyle game. Beyond Solitaire does have great videos, and there's a video how to set it up and how to play it. But even just the bare of learning how to set this game up from no kind of heuristic, zero familiarity, is a huge mountain to climb. Having someone, even if, Sarah had not remembered all the rules, which is so fair, it's a very complex game. The fact that she was vaguely familiar enough with it, they could say, wait, that doesn't look quite right. Oh, yeah, I'm sure this goes here, sure this goes there, is, I feel like, half the battle with that game, just gaining familiarity with it.
Yeah. And we played it on TTS, so there was a lot of the setup that was done automatically. But I've told this story a couple of times. Back when I was using just my MacBook for doing a lot of this stuff, so recording and playing games on TTS, Def said to me, I'll just show you what the mod looks like for Mage Knight. And the mod is so complex, and my MacBook was so crap. It shut my MacBook down. Thus was the complexity of the mod. It was just too complex.
Wow.
I used up
That's so funny.
I was like, instant memory.
Oh my God.
It was just like, no, it's got to turn off. And I was like, where did Conor go? Because he was showing me and Harry. He's like, where did Conor go? And I had to message them on my phone, like, no, my computer's just crapped itself. It's gone. So no Mage Knight on the Mac. But luckily that's not the case now. So yeah, definitely I can see. I was very sympathetic to Sarah for the amount of work she was having to do for the setup. And that was also with a lot of automation. So Mage Knight, super cool. Keen to play it again. Joe, I've been curious, I'll use your word, for this game for a little bit, and you've played a deluxe version of it, and that's Iwari. I've probably pronounced that wrong, but hey, we know that's not my strong suit.
No, that's right. Yeah, so I'd always been also curious to try Iwari because the artwork is beautiful, really beautiful. But I'd seen mixed reviews of it online, so I'd never gone out of my way to purchase it or give it a go. But I had a friend teach me Iwari. It was like an end of the game day kind of game where we've got like half an hour to an hour to go before we have to head home. So why don't we just whip this out and give it a go? It's a beautiful game, beautiful production. It was the deluxe edition, so it had all these lovely chunky pieces associated with it. I'm not sure what the standard edition has. Do you guys know, have you played Iwari? Do you know much about it at all?
I don't ever do this, but it was one of the games that I played on Board Game Arena without 100% knowing the rules.
Oh, yeah, classic.
It didn't go well.
No.
So basically, no. I didn't venture. When I read about the mechanisms, it sounded super interesting, but I haven't ventured back to it since then.
Yeah, it's almost like an area control-y kind of game. There's some area control elements. Essentially what you're doing is there's a map that's split up into these regions. There's like a green area, a yellow area, a red area, and you've got cards in your hand, and you spend the cards to place presents in the particular area of that color. So, for example, if you've got red cards, it'll allow you to place presents in the red area. You can also spend 2 cards in lieu of a different color if you want to. And so, if you're getting a bit stuck, so it gives you some flexibility in terms of the card draw, for example. I think you actually pick cards from a market as well, but you can also draw randomly. And so it's a really simple game, but that's essentially what you're doing. The thing that's really interesting about this game is that you are placing your presents in the area. So let's say the red area. You'll get points based on, once that area scores, and I'll get to that in a second, you get points based on your amount, whoever wins the area for having the most control. But then the person with the second most control, who came second, will also get points based on the total number of pieces within the area as well. So you still are able to catch up with the number of points you're getting. So that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is one of the things you can do on your turn is, rather than place the presents in the area or in the region, what you can do instead is place a piece in a totem pole in the region. And the thing that's interesting about that is the person who gets to score from a totem point of view in those regions has to have the most of that totem across the 2 regions. And each region is connected to another region, I guess. So you're focusing on getting the control within the regions itself, but also you're focusing on, is a competitor going to be trying to screw me over in my scoring pattern by having more of a totem in a particular area, for example. So it's quite light. It's quite fun to play. I think it was over within 45 minutes with a teach. I love an area control game, so it was right up my alley. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I should read a bit deeper into what the criticisms were of the game, because I thought it was a really great. The art was lovely, the production value was lovely, the game itself was really fun. It's not going to blow anyone's socks off, I don't think, but it was a solid end of the night game. I would definitely give it a go again for sure.
Was it nasty enough?
Yes, yeah, they were real mean to me.
Yeah.
Yep, they were real mean.
It's interesting how you said the criticisms. I think, and I've thought about this quite often since I've gotten back into the hobby more seriously, is that I think a lot of people want every game to be, rushing up the BGG top 100 or becoming their number one most played game for the month that it came out or things like that, when realistically, most games aren't going to be like that, right? They're going to be, hey, good, solid games. They've got to get out, in most cases, got to get out to mass market. So when you have a game that, and I don't mean this as a slight at all, just does its job and does it really well, some people aren't happy with that. They want it to have bells and whistles, or they want it to have a really interesting twist, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can just be fun for half an hour, 45 minutes, scratch the itch of an area control, nasty type game without being, the next brass.
Yeah, I think part of that is we're so time poor that, if we're going to play a game, we want to play the game we're really itching to play, for example. And it might be that, as Iwari is an older game, so as they kind of start to fade in terms of the new hot thing, and it's a really crowded market as well, right? So the games, so many games out there that if it doesn't knock your socks off, that maybe it's not going to have that staying power in terms of being tabled. What do you reckon, Loz?
I think in the case of Iwari, it was a few things. One being that the scoring is a little obtuse for some people with how the totem score. I think some people found that a bit hard to grok.
Sure, okay. Look, I definitely think, if you find a cheaper copy of it or it's being sold secondhand, you like area control, you're looking for a game in your collection where you want a lighter area control game that you can get played within half an hour, 45 minutes with your group, I think it's a perfect game to pick up for sure. So that was Iwari. I really enjoyed it. I would happily play that again for sure.
Loz, I'm going to ask you about the game. You have held up in your snip, and that is a nice button shy game called A Nice Cuppa.
Yeah, so A Nice Cuppa was a game I picked up on Kickstarter a little while ago and only now was just able to get it to the table. It is a solo button shy game that's about making tea and prepping tea. A very sweet theme, and the expansion is about getting out your good book and then popping down to read your book with your tea.
That is incredible.
Just
That's
delightful,
so
delightful. I feel like that kind of coziness could be a game theme more often. It's much like a lot of the solo button shy fare. It's a kind of, some aspect of a sequential spatial puzzle. And there are two button shy games I'm going to talk about on this podcast. One I liked a lot more, which I'm going to talk about later, but this one I didn't like quite as much. The reason being is that so you've got this sequence of, steps to make your cup of tea up top, and then these cards down the bottom, which are called worry cards, making a cup of tea, but also having an existential crisis at the don't time. And
don't we all?
That's why
is there
I don't
another
have
way
tea.
to have
I just have the existential crisis.
I kind of like that. It's that's funny.
It's like, I'm worried, so I'm going to have a tea to settle down. Yeah. But sometimes you've got too much time and space when you're having your tea. And it's like, I should be doing this. I should be doing that.
It's too real. Aging, politics, education, health, finances, work.
Oh, no. This I take this back. This doesn't sound nice. This sounds awful.
One of the cards just says existential.
Yeah.
I love that.
Does it not have it looks like a smoke head? Like it doesn't even have
a little whiff of smoke as the head.
Yeah.
So essentially every turn you're going to flip one of these worries and it's going to force you to rearrange the cards in a few ways. Because obviously you want to sequence up your tea so you're making it in order. Because at the end of the game, you're going to score more for all of the ones from one moving up sequentially that you're able to get in a row. But every turn you flip over a worry and it forces you to rearrange the cards. So they'll start shuffled and it might force you to switch two pairs or replace 3 with 1 or swap an odd and even number, those kinds of things, right? But every turn you have to from left to right sequentially resolve every single worry card that's still there. So there's ways to get rid of it, but basically it's okay, well, first I'm going to have to switch 2 pairs, and then I'm going to have to switch an odd and an even. So how do I want these to be rearranged, right? It's that kind of spatial puzzle of, well, how can I plan to have these rearranged so by the end of all things, they're going up 1 through 8 or whatever it is. The problem that I have with it, that puzzle's really cool and lovely and cute. The problem is you flip a random worry card every turn. The whole point of it is to plan a sequential puzzle, but I couldn't plan it because I didn't know what was going to come up. And so it kind of just made it that I was just responding to how it was going, which was a little disappointing. But I still think it's very cozy. I still think the art is absolutely divine. And if you are not interested in something so cerebral and you just want to kind of react, you might have a really pleasant time with it. I just found it a bit more lackluster because what you want out of these button shy games, at least for me, the solo ones, kind of a quick thinky puzzle, like how Food Chain Island, Rove, Skulls of Sedlec, the ones that people really like are these lovely little crunchy bite-sized puzzles. But I feel like the fact that I just had to respond to stuff meant that I didn't, not even that I would just have to react, but kind of what I was doing just felt a bit random. I was like, well, I don't know why I'm switching it this way because I don't know what's going to come up next. But I still like the theme and I still want to give it a few more tries, and maybe with the little expansions that are in there might change it up for me. I wish I could. I love Scott Arms and I love the solo collections. Another one of his that I'm going to talk about and rave about later, but that was a slight miss for me, which is A Nice Cuppa.
Lots, have you played some of the other button shy games that are a bit random like that? So like Tussie Mussy, for example?
Tussie Mussy's one I've not played. I know it's one of the
okay.
more popular ones, and it's astonishing to me that I haven't played it. I didn't pick it up originally because it was 2-player.
Yeah.
And then it had a solo expansion, I think, right? Or was it always
Sure.
1 to 2-player? I can't remember.
I'm not
But
sure.
I think originally I didn't pick it up because I thought, oh, maybe it's meant for 2 players.
Oh, okay.
But I've heard it's great.
And is James just useless?
Oh yeah, it just we barely hang out.
That's why you got married. You barely hang out.
That's why I moved to Roma. Oh my god, I'm kidding.
Because Tussie Mussy, the thing with the button shy games is the randomness sometimes feels okay because it is so short and it's so bite-sized. So with Tussie Mussy, I'm sure you know, it's I split, you choose. And it's kind of random in terms of, well, the cards you get are the cards you get, and what you don't get necessarily a lot of control half the time because the other person gets to, split the cards and then you choose. So, and you only have information of half the cards. So I'm not sure so with Tussie Mussy, I'll explain more clearly. You get 2 flower cards. One of them you place face up, one of them you place face down. They will score at the end of the game depending on where you place it in your bouquet, and each card has a scoring condition. And so, it is one of those games where it does feel a bit more random. Where you're like, okay, well, this is my bouquet. It's certainly not perfect. I wouldn't have chosen to do this if I had more control over it. But it was kind of fun in the meantime because it's the mind game in between. So that reactivity, that you reacting can be fun if it's like the mind game element. But does this game not have that?
That's a really good point. The randomness undermines the quality of the decision itself. It feels like,
I see,
because it was random, I didn't know what I was meant to be making a decision based on, because that decision ultimately hangs on what's going to come next. But I didn't know what was going to come next.
Oh, okay. I see.
But I totally agree in the context. The same with Skulls of Sedlec, right? How those things are arranged is totally random. Same with Food Chain Island, and especially with the expansions where you flip stuff. I don't mind that at all. I think just in this context, it made the decisions less. It just didn't matter.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
cool. Tussie Mussy's great. That whole I split, you choose, and trying to confuse people. Chris Anthony did that with Tropical, so that's a cool little feature that he has used as well. And I thought Tropical was so good.
Yeah, my game at PAX is so good. Yeah, so good.
Get that game published.
I know, Jesus.
Anyway, hopefully one day.
I love I Split You Choose.
Yeah.
I had someone that hadn't played with that mechanism. And I was like, righto, we're dropping everything and I'm just going to show you Hanamakoji just so you can see how this mechanism works, because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, so the mind games.
And when it pays off, I'm like, I did it. I did pick that.
Yeah.
I wanted that. I wanted you to pick that. Yeah, it's so good. Really cool. It's nice small little wins for me, Joe. That's what it's about. Those nice
100%.
small
little dopamine hits.
So, Joe, this game sounds like a hoot, but that is Anomia X. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's really fun. So Anomia, if the listeners haven't played or heard of Anomia before, It's a really silly party game. It's super fun. Essentially, there's a deck of cards, and turn by turn around a circle, you'll pull a card and place it face up in front of you. Each card has a symbol on it, and it'll have a category like fast food restaurant or board game or famous artist, right? And so what you do is when someone pulls a card that has the same symbol as your card in front of you, so you have the same symbol on each other's cards, you have to name something from that category on the opponent's card. So if Loz and I had two cards, one of mine, but same symbol, my card says fast food restaurants, hers says famous artist, I would have to say Monet, for example. So, and say it before her. If I do that, I then take that card as a point to score it. And you keep going around. The thing that's really fun is you'll be going around in circles, and you'll be developing like a stack of cards. And so if you take someone's card off their stack and then a new match happens, then that also resolves as well. And it's, again, so you're kind of scrambling to do that. It was quite funny. My group that played it, we're a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds. It wasn't the quickest. Everyone would look around each other and be like, oh, there's a match. Okay. And then it was very funny. But so that's Anomia. Anomia X is essentially Anomia After Dark. So it has kind of adult-themed concepts and categories. So it was stuff like a sex toy or shortened way of saying a particular swear word or a particular body part, for example. It was, and the group, bless them, many of them aren't as degenerate as I am. And so it was funny seeing them trying to come up with clues for certain things. And then when, the dirtier of us in the group would say something outlandish, they'd be like, oh my God, I've never heard of that before. So it's really fun. There's not much to say about it, but I loved Anomia. It was, we had a really raucous time last night playing it. And the After Dark, have some After Dark or adult themed party games just feel a bit.
Yeah. It actually takes away from the fun. Like, it feels like they're trying to almost hamstring the Cards Against Humanity style into the game, as opposed to just being, hey, this game is silly if we give you a small, like Monica's, for example.
Yes.
But like Monica's does that really well.
Completely
because
agree.
It will give you something, and then it's up to you to make that as appropriate or inappropriate as you like.
Completely agree. And I think sometimes I feel like the After Dark variants of games, of the party games, it sometimes feels like they pull the punch a little bit, where they're like, they don't want to be too dirty. They don't want to get cancelled. Whereas these categories were pretty funny. And, if you're a group of Mormon missionaries, your examples are probably going to be less colorful than some of the examples I gave in my game. But like you said, it's dependent on the group, right? So, yeah, I had a great time. It's one of those kind of After Dark games that I would probably buy and actually have in my collection. It was really fun.
Yeah. When I was like, oh, X, what's that? I was like, is there 10 times like the amount of like categories or something like that? And I looked up like, oh, that's what it's about.
That's
and
right,
yes, I'm like, we need to play this together, Joe.
I'm just going to buy a copy and bring it to PlayCon. That's it. That's what we're doing.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I just thought it was for the oldies and the cards were just massive. You're over there squinting to see what.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I hate those speed games too, like Ghost Blitz. Totally different, right? Like, so it's totally different from Anomia. But oh man, we played that with a whole bunch of people, and I was so slow. And I just focused on one thing rather than the whole picture. But yeah, so that was Anomia X. Loz, I'm going to ask you about one more game before we move into our sizzles. And this game looks really cool. I'd not heard about it until you mentioned it, and that's Powerline.
Yeah, so this is a game that was on Kickstarter, which is weird because it's a really simple game that could maybe even be a roll and write. It's a Queen's game, and it's essentially a push your luck game, kind of. You've got a little board with kind of little power plants and rows of spaces of faces of dice connecting them. So you might have, the power plant in the top left. There's like 3 dice, and all the boards are different. So my board might be 3, then 5, then 2. And then there's longer ones. Essentially, all you're doing, every round, you're going to roll 6 dice that have different colors. And then how those dice come out from left to right or right to left in the order of the colors, you can assign dice to start connecting different routes of these power lines. But really, you're just kind of committing dice to start different power lines. Once you start a power line, you have to go in that direction. So you have to fill in the dice from left to right, and you have to assign them to power lines from left to right. The cool part of it is, though, that how many you assign is totally up to you. So even though there are 6 dice, on one turn, you'd be like, these are garbage, and I'm just going to do 1. right? And so you just assign one. In the top left of your board, there's this kind of little section that tells you, how many parts of a power line you're building. Those are totally limited. So in the game, you can only assign 1 dice twice. You can only assign 6 dice twice. So there's all these kind of little push your luck constraints of, oh, well, I'm only going to go for 1 now, but, maybe I won't do later. Because another thing that you can do is if you ever, so say, for example, you've got 3 different power lines you're working on, and for one of them, you need a 5 next, one of them, you need a 5 next, and one of them, you need a 2 next, right? And say, for example, the dice come out and it's 5, 6, 2, 5. Now, that would be perfect for you if that 6 wasn't there. What you can do is you can say, you piss off one of the guys to this little island at the top. You just send them off to the island and you basically get to skip that number, but it's -1 point. So I can assign my 5, skip the 6, then assign the 2, then assign the 5. Happy days, right? What happens is as you get towards the end of the game, you're like, okay, well, now I only have, there's 2 turns left and I can either assign 4 guys or 6 guys. And if the dice come out and you can't place any of them, then you have to just send all those guys to the island and take negative points. It's a really, really cool little push your luck game. There's lots of other little things to consider. So, all these other scoring cards that can change it throughout the game. But at the end of the game, you lose points if you haven't completed certain power lines. So there's all of this, well, I can start it and then I'm going to get huge points because if I circle this, then I'll get this. But flying too close to the sun and it all crashing down, both with respect to how many dice you take, but also which power lines you start. I just really liked it. I really, really liked it. And I don't know if I've done it justice explaining it because it's kind of unlike anything else I've played. It's essentially just push your luck, assigning dice to make little routes. Once you commit to a direction, you commit to it. Yeah, I just really liked it with a few other kind of wrinkles of scoring and, there's other things you can get that let you turn dice into wild and so on and so forth. But every time you complete something, you get to score it. So there's these lovely little score that, cover that. I really, really liked it. Look up the production of this game. There's this kind of acrylic clear dice tower, which is just so unnecessary, but looks beautiful.
The game looks beautiful. Curse you, Lauren, because this game is not available in Australia. I can't order it from anywhere else. I've been looking at it while you've been talking. It looks so good. I love dice placement as a mechanic.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm really going through a dice placement renaissance at the moment. I'm really enjoying it a lot, and it looks beautiful.
If you like dice placement, have you played Fantastic Factories?
No, I don't think I have.
We're going to play this. Okay. It's great.
Awesome.
Yep, I'm bringing it to PlayCon or whatever next time I see you. If it's before PlayCon. So, yep, I'll bring it. Cool. It's so good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so good. Anyway, I agree. I want this game. Damn, I can't believe it's not available here. That is an absolute travesty. Acrylic tower or no, I need to have this game.
It's on TTS, so people can give it a whirl. It's very, very simple. But yeah, love push your luck. Love flying too close to the sun and then just cursing the heavens when it doesn't work out. There's something great about that.
Good. So good. I'm gonna be looking for this game for a while now. Yeah.
All right, so that was a quick rundown of a few games. We'll move into our sizzles. I'm going to be a bit naughty because because the game I'm actually talking about is not a physical game. It is actually a video game, but it's a video game that's based around playing cards. So I have done this before. So I have form. So I do apologize. But if you like card games, and if you like roguelites or likes, I can never remember. Do you remember which are which? I always get confused as to.
It's a roguelite.
Roguelite, then. So this game is called Monster Train. Monster Train has just come out. It's actually on Game Pass.
I'm just letting you know, Conor, that I'm going to allow this. Please continue.
Oh, thank you, Judge / Dr. DeLuca. I'm glad you're allowing this. Do I need to run it? Do I need to run it past Lauren too?
I'm editing it out, so it doesn't matter what you say.
Is it in my whole sizzle or just what you say?
I'm kidding. As you were, sir. I'm very interested to hear.
It's a bit funny. And my sizzle is okay. On to Joe now for your sizzle. So Monster Train, the reason I'm talking about this is because it is a card-based game. So if you've ever played something like Slay the Spire, which does have a board game implementation of that, and a few other games too, where you have a deck of cards and your aim is to use this deck of cards to effectively march your way up different levels, progress through different levels, and so on and so forth. Probably the main difference between Monster Train 1 and 2, or 2 is what I'm talking about for this episode, is that with Slay the Spire, you're effectively just playing through as one character and then buffing your character and buffing your cards to help your character. In Monster Train, you're playing units to this train that's moving through this sort of fictional landscape. There's a story behind it, whatever. Like, it doesn't phase me at all what the story is. But what the story kind of uses is the factions that are in the game. So what you start off with are some angel factions or banished factions, which are banished angels, and then some dragon factions. I think they're called Pyrex is the top of dish. There's something like that. And I won't go into all the different mechanics and so on and so forth. And part of that is because it's quite complex. And probably one of the reasons why, and I hesitate to say this because they always end up doing a pretty good job of implementing these systems to board games, but the complexity is why it's a board game and not probably a card game that you can play on the table. But what you do is you move through these different stages, earn some gold, and then power up your cards. I've been having an absolute blast with this game so far. I'm terrible at it because what you're doing is into each of the different sections, you can play some units, or you can play spells, or you can play equipment. It's totally up to you. It's about using your power that you have, effectively like your mana, and you have at the top of your train a pyre. And this pyre is your life source, and it doesn't regenerate as you go through the different levels. But what's also cool is that the monster train itself is broken up into 3 levels. And what you can do is actually move units forward and back. There's a limit to the number of units you can play on each level. That means that and then you need to decide, okay, which one am I going to play there? Am I going to use up or try and, I guess, blunt the attack of the opponent as they come through because they've got a certain number of waves that come through? Am I going to wait and protect the top level and let them move up? So on and so forth. So there's heaps of things that you can sort of think about doing. There's also an incredible amount of combinations that you can have between the cards that you earn, how you level them up, your champion, the actual deck that you have that your champion is from, and so on and so forth. But like I said, probably the one area where I could see them potentially using something like the card flip mechanics from Dead Reckoning is how you level up the cards. So you can give them more attack, you can give them more health. But this is all random based on your run. Now, they did it really, really well, I think, with the Dead Cells game where you slot things in and that acts as a permanent upgrade. But this is a little bit different where by the end of the run, all your cards are going back to normal. All that you've done is effectively unlock just some more cards that you could potentially use in your run. But man, if you like digital card games, this is so much fun. I've just been having an absolute, like I said before, been having an absolute blast. It's quick, so you get through a run and it's done. I think that it's got enough similarities to other card games that you can catch on pretty quickly. Other thing that's really interesting is it's an auto battler. So I don't know if people are aware of this term of auto battler, but what that means is effectively you start your turn, you set out what's going to happen in that turn, and it just runs through and it does everything. So some people might be like, oh, that's not very fun. But what might happen is something might activate in that turn that changes the values. But I think it's really good because effectively you're playing this cool turn, and then rather than you having to wait, interrupt, and play another card, it just plays out. Joe, I know Lauren, you're into video games too as well, but Joe, you mentioned you played the first.
I'm a huge Slay the Spire fan.
Yeah.
And so I'd had friends and family say, oh, you should try Monster Train. I gave it a go, and I just found that it felt like a game that was pushed out early to capitalize on Slay the Spire, and it felt a bit like a Slay the Spire clone and didn't do enough differently that it kept my attention. But I've heard that they've changed that with Monster Train 2, made it more complex, made it more interesting, gave it more of its own identity, which I think I'm very keen to give it a go.
Yeah.
So would you say intricacies of those cards is just too much of it to play out analog?
Yeah, that's right. And I mentioned something similar when I talked about Balatro, which is, again, another game entirely. But the maths behind it and the amount of times it activates and those types of things, I think it would become really laborious because you'll have cards that activate multiple times. And as opposed to just doing it for you really quickly, you would have to add a token or work out the differences and all that type of stuff. I think the other aspect is the practical aspect of, well, how can I represent this card getting stronger without marking it? An option would be potentially to have markers, and you make the cards that you can draw on, but then when it comes to shuffling, what does that mean? You only have a small amount of cards in your decks. That could be an option where you maybe write a symbol, or even like stamps. Like stamps could be cool, where you can put a stamp on it and that's what that means. But yeah, I think, and you're probably right, like the going, oh, okay, now I've got to do this twice, and how does that work out? Whereas with the auto battler system, it's just they attack, you get to see some cool little animations, things happen, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Did you play the first Monster Train? The equipment stuff is new to Monster Train 2. Looks like the plans are new to Monster Train 2.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's a really cool aspect as well, because you have these equipment cards where you buff a particular character or unit, and then it's gone at the end of the round, so you could then equip that to another one, as opposed to, I guess, you think of a traditional game where you equip a character and they have that equipment until something happens or along those lines. So whereas those card upgrades, they are permanent. So when you go in and see, like, I'm just going to call them like a card smith, they've got particular names, but if you upgrade the card for it to have more health, that stays like that forever. So yeah, I really think that these digital card games do have a space within the board game hobby, because they're still using cards, and it's just doing things that are a little bit different that you wouldn't be able to do on the table.
So that's what I was going to say, is that I think the benefit of them is I think what the designers do is they go, okay, these are card games, we're going to reproduce them digitally. What can we do to riff on the games or the mechanics that exist and take advantage of the computing power of the processor, right? Rather than having, and things that can change up. You can change the cards, augment them, those sorts of things, add random elements, for example, that might be more hard to implement on a tabletop. So I always think it's interesting to then, what's the design loop of, okay, this is a game that's digital, that has the benefit of being digital. How do you then create a design that then brings it back to the tabletop? If you're going to create a Monster Train tabletop game, does that make sense? Is it something that should be done, I guess, is the other question.
Yeah. Does it stop being fun when you have to do all those little steps?
Correct.
Or can you change it so that you don't have as many little steps, but it's still intuitive and there is a game there?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I think something as well is you can patch video games, right? So you can add cards.
Yeah, balance. Yep.
You can rebalance. There's so many bombastic combinations and interactions. There's so much that needs tweaking, right? I mean, they came out with a second one, but even after these games come out, and I think that that's something board games can't do. If a Eurogame's not balanced, you can't go, well, let's just adjust this here and there. Let's, change the values on my pipeline board. Like, you can't do it.
But no, that's a good point too. So, I mean, we talked about it before, how people are unhappy with Awari. If that was a video game, they could patch it to make it, okay, so you're not happy, let's make this clearer, let's change the icons or something like that. So that's because there's a production cost to that there isn't in video games. So you have to make sure that everything is right before it goes to the printers. We're sort of getting a bit off track, but yeah, Monster Train, if you like digital card games and you like rogue-like, what was it, Joe?
It's a rogue light, I believe. It's different to a rogue like.
Yes, which is strange. And people who aren't aware of these terms, that's fine. You can just tune out; it doesn't bother me at all. But yeah, really, really good. If you don't have Xbox Live and you have something else, I would grab it on there. Loz, you were talking about the other button shy game, and imagine this is what you're going to be talking about now. So I won't let you be a lead and let you introduce it.
So this is another one that I don't know if I can't remember if I picked up in the same Kickstarter. Scott Alms designed. Scott's designed a bunch of the solo button shy games. It's called The Last Lighthouse. Essentially, you've got these kind of creatures, these nightmares that are coming to attack this lighthouse, and it's dimming and fading, and as you lose health, the light on the lighthouse fades away, and if it would ever be extinguished, you would lose. You have each of the cards, because traditionally button shy, they come in these dinky little wallets, and they're typically 18 cards. And so they're all about maximizing how much you can do with as little as possible. So naturally, in the same vein as, button shy, the cards are both the traps that you play and the nightmares. So one side, if you hold the card one way, it's the nightmare. If you flip it the other way, it's the trap. All you do is you have this little tower defense. You've got a little row of nightmares that are going towards your lighthouse, and they will have abilities on them. Some are when you place the nightmare. So when you place a card, some is when the card gets destroyed. So every turn, you're going to have the option to place out a trap, and you can place it anywhere in that row. So, wedge it between two nightmares, put it at the front right next to your lighthouse to save it, put it right at the back, wherever you want, and then attack a nightmare. So all of the traps that you play have a range right and left, and they'll try, attack right and left. After you do that, you're going to add a nightmare to the row. So it's this kind of, ongoing barrage of nightmares coming towards your lighthouse, and then the nightmares attack. So this game's all about cascading, activating abilities. So it's, let me put this card here because I know it's going to be able to reach this nightmare this side. And when I kill that nightmare, I get to, activate this thing. Also, when you destroy nightmares, they come back in your hand as traps because you basically never get to draw cards. The only way that you can get more of these trap cards to place out is by killing nightmares. The art on the cards is absolutely lovely. I really, really liked it. It's got a kind of Arkham Horror Cthulhu-esque, with this slow darkness ascending up towards the lighthouse. Really, really beautiful production. I just really enjoyed it. It amazes me how they can continue to do different things, slight variations, slight tweaks on this 18 card formula and come up with designs that feel really different, really new. It really gave me a strong sense of tower defense in 18 cards. It was incredible. I've got little expansions that I've not tucked into yet. And more so than any other button shy, in fact, any button shy, maybe bar Food Chain Island, where the art and theme was quite evocative for me. If I played enough, it might be my favorite button shy game.
I'm always curious about these games where the top of the card is good to you and the bottom of the card is harmful, or even when it's a multi-use card, how the balances between the two of them. Because if the horror, for example, is really, really tough, but the trap isn't very useful, well, that kind of ruins it a bit, doesn't it? Because you're like, what am I supposed to do? So have you found the balance has been pretty good between the traps and then the horrors?
There's definitely swings in it, but in ways that it makes the decisions more interesting. It's like, okay, well, now this nightmare is out of range to my lighthouse, which means he's going to attack my trap. This trap, if he gets defeated, which he'll have enough health to do, turns the traps either side of it into nightmares. I can't afford that to happen. So I actually need to sacrifice, damage to my lighthouse this turn. So even though some of the cards feel, way more swingy than others, I think that's done with intention because it makes some decisions more compelling. You're like, okay, well, that he absolutely can't die. Or I definitely want to try kill this nightmare if I can, because if I can pick it up as a trap, that trap is great.
The other thing that I've noticed is they don't have names, the traps or the horrors. They just have descriptions of what they do and obviously their strength and stuff like that, which is even spookier. Like the trap is just like, oh, well, like what type of trap is it? Well, you don't know. Like that's up to you. That's up to your imagination, which again, I think ties into that whole Lovecraftian sort of psychological horror of the situation.
All of the art, they're not quite well defined. So it gives the impression of they're looming in the shadows because you can't quite see the full silhouette of it.
I was looking on BGG when you were talking about it, and one of the editions is the Japanese. I imagine like a Japanese edition. So obviously, with the way the Japanese is written, it goes vertically. So the cards are real narrow, and I don't know, it just gives us like a weird vibe of it being more, like in a lighthouse, maybe moving up the lighthouse or something like that. Like it's actually quite cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. As you were speaking, I was looking at photos of it, Loz. It is amazing how they make these games with so few cards and so different. And I was like, yeah, this is nothing like any of the other button shy games that I've heard of, seen of. It's pretty unique, even from a point of view of other board games that are out there. It's so cool. And the art definitely evokes that kind of Lovecraftian kind of eldritch horror, something lurking in the depths coming to get you kind of. It's really cool. I'm going to have to pick this up for sure.
So that's The Last Lighthouse by Button Shy Games. And Joe, you're going to round us out with
Ito, the opposite of a solo game, a large group game. So party game. So in Ito, what you're doing is you have a deck of cards that are numbered 1 to 100. You also have a deck of cards that give you categories. And so it's things like rides at a theme park or delicious meals or your favorite meal or pieces of clothing. The most comfortable piece of clothing, for example. And what you're trying to do, every person gets dealt out one of the number cards, and you're trying to, one by one, place the cards out in a line from lowest to highest number and do that without saying what number you've got. And the way that you do that is you take the category, you together as a group decide which category you want to do. So let's say rides, scariest rides at a theme park. You'll put your card out face down. Let's say I had a 99. So scariest rides at a theme park might be getting shot out of a cannon via a bungee cord that then goes down into a moat, right? So you go really extreme because you've got the 99, you know you want it to be at the end of the chain. Then the next person then puts with their number, puts it into the either before or after that card, and then they have to give a description. And so if they've got a lower number, they're going to choose something less scary. If they've got the 100, they might say something even scarier than that. And that's it. So the constraints of the game is what makes the game hilarious. We didn't win any of our games last night. We were yelling at each other. There was one person that would always mess it up, and we were yelling at them like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Why can't you give a normal description?
I love games like that so much I just love piling on people and then also deflecting when it's been my fault. No, it wasn't my fault; it's their fault.
100%.
So it kind of reminds me of like in the mind when you know that the next card you're going to play was going to be the wrong one.
Yes,
but someone else played the wrong before. You're like, oh, it's all your fault, even though if we have one more turn, it'd be me.
I think the thing that's inherently funny about this is that it's really funny to one-up people. That kind of, it's normally something that's a bit douchey to do, but in this context, it's just really funny. Oh, you think that's scary? I'm going to show you what's scary.
So that's something that absolutely happens with this game, which is like, let's say I had the 99, I said that, someone else has the 100. So they might say, getting shot out of a cannon by a bungee cord, being dropped into a moat, and then swiped through a sea of snakes, for example. So so it's like you one up each other or one down each other almost, which is even funnier. Yeah, it is very funny.
Yeah, it feels like one of those games where you also like start telling a story too.
Yes,
like when you talk about the one upping, it's like, oh, what can I remember? Because I want to make sure that it's scarier or more delicious or comfier. It's like I'm going to wear a down coat that massages me and also helps me fall asleep. So I'm at 99. What can you do that's better?
100%. I've played a similar game to this before as well called That Escalated Quickly, which is very similar. The difference in that is there are only cards 1 to 10. So it's a lot simpler to figure out where the cards go. I guess there's more shades of grey when there's cards of 0 to 100. So the people I played with last night said they preferred That Escalated Quickly just because they felt like it was too difficult to try and find the nuance of where the cards had to go. How do you differentiate an 80 to a 95, for example? So, but I liked that grey zone, that nuance made it funnier. And so you're more likely to mess up. So I enjoyed that. But that if you wanted to play something that's less intense, maybe, then That Escalated Quickly might be another good option as well.
What other categories and things that came up in your games?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. What's the most comfortable clothes? And then there was a board games one, which we actually didn't. Oh no, we did do the board games one. We did the board games one where it was like most popular board games, and then we had like a drop down fight between us all because we were like, no, Brass Birmingham's number one, no, Gloomhaven's number one. What's more popular? And so it was a bunch of board gamers being very about it. So it was quite fun. I know
that surprises me.
It was very funny. It was very funny. But then we messed it up. And so it was like, what do you mean you think that game's more popular than that game? It was just very funny. I think Ito's only recently had an English release as well. So it's a Japanese game. And so I picked it up while I was in Sydney at Games Paradise actually recently. And I was glad that I got it.
What do you think about the quality of the categories they've included in the English?
They were great. So actually there were 3 types of categories, and there was one type that we didn't get to play with, which sounded really funny. So I'll explain that. So there was like the family-based category, the for everyone, which is like, I guess, simpler prompts, family-friendly prompts. There was the for everyone category, and then there was like physical category. So it'd be things like make the silliest sound. So it'd be 0 to 100, right? So then
amazing.
Not a silly sound to a very, very silly sound, or it'd be do a funny dance. And so things that sound naff, but actually we didn't get to do it, but me picturing the people there trying to do the funniest walk or like a 25 funny walk, it just is very funny to me.
What's funnier, like 10? Like, what's a 10 funny walk? I'm like, do they have a slight limp? Do they,
With this game and That Escalated Quickly, like the extremes are always easier to do, but it's that like middle of the road, a quarter, half to three quarters, where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You have to pull back a little bit. It's very funny, very funny. So
Yeah.
I thought the prompts were great. We looked through the prompts; they were really interesting. They were fun to play with. So yeah, and there's nothing stopping you from making your own prompts, right? So it's a really easy game to do for sure.
It reminds me a bit. Have you heard of On a Scale of 1 to T-Rex?
No.
I have. Yeah,
I haven't heard of it.
I can't. Do you remember how it plays? Something about doing certain actions and trying to find the person that has the same number as you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
like a matching game.
And trying to find someone. I'm doing like my weird arm wave. That's a 4 out of 10. And you're doing your other thing. And I'm like, is that a 4? Are we both 4s?
That actually sounds really fun.
All these games, like the one you were just talking about before, Lauren, they just remind me of games that we play with the kids on school retreats. And it's so funny because like, oh, this is no fun. And then they grow up like for 15, 20 more years and like, this is the best fun I've had in years. This is so much fun. All right, so that rounds out our sizzles. We had me with Monster Train 2. We had Lauren with The Last Lighthouse and Joe with Ito.
Would you like to win a 3-day pass to PlayCon 2025? Well, you can by joining Behold Games Group on Aftergame, attending a meetup event, and post or join a game which actually runs and sign up in store. At Behold Games, you'll find friendly service, great suggestions for games, unique games, and also can make special orders. There's board game meetups weekly and once a month on Sundays for longer game sessions. There's a great range of RPGs available and our weekly community RPG one-shots. You can also learn to play Magic at Sydney CBD's newest WPN Premium store. There's also Learn to Play sessions for Disney Lorcana and play at one of the weekly league events. For all this and more, go visit beholdgames.com.au, and thank you to Behold Games for sponsoring PlayCon 2025.
All right, so very short news and announcements today. Just a couple of things regarding PlayCon. So in regards to Aftergame, if you're coming to PlayCon and want to organise games, please add your games to Aftergame that you wish to play. If you haven't signed up to Aftergame, please do, because that's where most of the games are going to be organised. And just a reminder that all PlayCon tickets are past the point of being refunded and are non-transferable. So if someone says they're going to sell you a ticket, do not accept it from them. I can't wait. And I think this is going to be potentially coming up a bit later, and how excited all three of us are for PlayCon. So we might leave it until then. All right. So we had a question on the pod last week, which was, what are some of the barriers you have encountered to getting your games played, and what game was it? So we had a variety of answers. Some of them were specific about games, some of them not so much. Some of them we'll go through in a moment. But for me, a lot of the time it's time and motivation and being able to get that board game out onto the table. You know, sometimes I'll leave something set up that I'll go back and play, and I'm like, oh, that's set up. I have to pack it up, then set up something else. So generally having a game already set up is a barrier for me. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, it's definitely that like life stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, I can't, I have to get my board game group together, and to get them together or go to our board game nights, the stars have to align where I don't have my daughter, or, I don't have to work, or I don't have something else that comes up. I'm not sick with another bloody daycare virus. So, it's all of these things that are going to form a barrier to me to play the games that I want to play.
Yeah. And maybe if you had a barrier to germs, you wouldn't get
goddamn immune system. The other thing I found, because I moved into this new place that has a little bungalow out the back, my board game bungalow or board game salon, is that sometimes it's messy and I don't want to clean it up. And so that's another barrier to having to, if I'm going to invite people over, I have to clean my house, and people can't see the way that I live.
Yeah, an illusion. But you can go straight out into the bungalow, can't you? You don't have to go through the main house.
You can. That's true. You can. Yeah, you've stayed in the board game bungalow.
Yeah. So you can just sneak past. A little nana flat.
Sure.
Good setup. But we had quite a few responses actually to the question of the pod. Lots over on Facebook and Discord. So, Joe, I might get you to read through the first couple if that's okay.
Yeah, so from Facebook, we had Catherine Smith, who kind of said what I said. So juggling work, time in general as a family and coordinating with friends, especially when you want to play those really bigger, longer games where you need to learn how to play it and get it to the table, get it set up. And Catherine's collection has a lot of smaller to medium weight games, as the big ones just don't get to the table. We had Nathan Everett, who also agreed with me. It's the kids that will stop you from doing it. So kids and time, they miss playing all of their games, but especially their prototypes, and it's made it harder to iterate as well as a game designer. We also had Taryn Hoffman on Facebook, who said Zoo Tycoon, waiting for over a year for a revised rulebook to be released, hoping it fixes glitches in original. So
That's what we talked about before, right?
Yeah.
With the video game, usually it's a patch.
Yeah,
so
exactly right. Yeah, so that's interesting where it's publisher or designer hiccups or hurdles. David Joseph said they'll prioritize sitting on a teach table over reading the rules themselves. That can create a hold up. But if I really want to get it in on a table fast, he'll read the rules. And it's just due to time, they guess. But how often do you have time to read a heavy rule book? I also don't have much time, but I actually quite enjoy reading rule books because I'm a nerd. And then Shane Murray said BIOS Genesis. They had 2 54-page rule books, and a huge amount of randomness made it difficult to ask other people to play.
It is rough. We had our board game tables had set up time with Orleans being the most flagrant example. I haven't found that with my gameplay of Orleans, but maybe sorting out the tokens and things like that maybe can be annoying. Oz Fry said, my toddler is the biggest barrier and the game is all of them. So my sympathies to you, Oz Fry.
Big empathy time.
For you, I imagine, Joe, for that. And I'll quickly tuck into the Discord ones because there's a couple that Loz is going to go through that are quite lengthy. So Les Lucid said, first bought Rise and Fall and was very excited to get it played. Supports a player count from 2 to 4. Bring along to a game night. We're a group of 5. Try again the next week. Group of 5. Third week running. Obviously a group of 5. Eventually did get it played and loved it. Little more flexibility in player count could have gotten it to the table much sooner. Yes, I think game group numbers can also be a bit of a barrier because, it might have 3 players one week and then 5 the next and then 6. And, you might want to play heavier games that don't normally go to, 5 and 6 because it's, longer play counts, things like that. So definitely feel that. All right, Loz, bring us home.
We've got Shoitan, who gave us his top 3. He said, Number one barrier is easily time to play. I like crunchier and more interactive games, and some people deal poorly with interaction causing huge AP. Number 2, complexity to teach. Pax Mimir is potentially quite a fast-playing game, not in my experience, and it is when everyone knows the system inside out, but even one new person and the teach is rough and the game length blows out.
Yeah, 100%.
Number 3, pragmatic realities of setup. Massive setup, huge, obnoxious, hard to deal with boxes, billions of plastic baggies and no insert. Time is the number 1 limiting factor. If I have to spend an additional 20 minutes setting up and 10 minutes tearing down, then it triggers problem 1. Nice little loop you've got there, Shoitan. We've got Satellite Nova, who says, physical box size and weight. Particularly my Critter Kitchen Deluxe. I am scared to lug it through the city to the friendly local game stores, knowing that it will be exhausting to carry.
Yeah, fair. Yep.
So fair. And we say those, big everything in one boxes are truly kind of board game coffins, mausoleums. They just don't get played after that. In particular, I have a bad back, which makes weight and ease of carry my primary concerns. Ruben says, table space and player count is always the 2 biggest limiting factors of getting a game to the table for me. Chris Torkim, he says, contrary to popular belief, it's not that I don't want to take the games out of shrink. Time is the biggest factor not getting games to the table. I don't get a lot of spare time to play stuff, and when I do, I have about 3 to 4 different groups of friends that all play games, all with different tastes. And what normally happens is smaller games or games that are easy to teach or already known end up on the table, as game sessions are usually nighttime when the kids are in bed and people's brains are running on limited fuel. I also have a lot of campaign games that benefit from continual plays regularly with the same group, which is also a lot harder to organize and commit to. Learning games is also sometimes a headache. I generally learn by doing so. Getting out games to play solo in advance of group plays is often difficult. However, my kids are starting to get a bit older, so I can get more time to play as they are less reliant on my time. I'm also hoping to fix the campaign game issue with, regular plays with someone who now lives nearby, making it easier to get together. The learning thing, that's on me though, dough. And Manny rounds us off. He says, I think my love of the hobby ebbs and flows because of this. With less time to play, it poses two problems. One, I'm not regularly playing games, so my shelf of shame grows, which results in a high mountain to climb and exasperation as a result. And two, I'm not regularly playing games, so even games I love are continually being relearned, which then has more of an impact of the available time I have.
So there was actually a lot of responses to this question in the pod. So people obviously feel passionate about it. And I think one of the reasons why is because it is a hobby and it can feel like a lot. So rather than, turning on a TV to watch a game or play a video game, turning on the TV to watch a TV show, going for a walk or something like that other hobbies that people have, really easy to do and don't take much setup, whereas board games take a little bit more. Our next question of the pod was inspired by me talking about Mage Knight, how I'd not played it before. And we would like to know, firstly, from the members of the podcast, but you guys, when it gets to your chance, what is your board game blind spot? And this doesn't have to be a particular game. It could be a type of game. So I know people are like, oh, I've never really played Trick Takers before. I love to play some Trick Takers. Or, I haven't played much area control because I don't like fighting games, but I'd love to see if, there's one that's out there for me. So, Joe, what's your board game blind spot?
I'm going to get really vulnerable.
It's a safe space.
Thank you. I own and have never played Tigris and Euphrates, and I know it's a game that I would absolutely love. And I feel like it's one of those games where I'm probably never going to get it played because there's so much other stuff that's coming out. And I don't know. Yeah, I would love to play it, but it's definitely like my kind of game where it's like, it's just, I open up the rule book and I just can't get it. I just can't intake the rules. And so, yeah, so that's my blind spot. What about you guys?
Mine would be something like Le Havre or some of those older Euro games that I probably didn't play a lot of because what we started playing when I got back in the hobby were more modern games. And also my family was well into, I guess, games like area control or conflict games. We probably played more of those types. So like a Blood Rage, for example, got heaps of gameplay at my house. But something that would have come out at the same time that's a Euro because it wasn't what my family was into. We didn't play it as much. So maybe those Euros that sort of came out from, 2000 to I want to say like 2010, 2011. Because those really dry Euros that people seem really into. That's my blind spot.
I have another one. Concordia. Concordia is one of those games, that dry Euro where it's like, I feel like I should play it, but I just that, and actually Brass Birmingham. There you go. All of these really popular games where I've just never played them that I'm sure I would love. And yeah, it's really interesting. They're pouring out now.
So up until only a couple of months ago, one of my blind spots was Seven Wonders. I'd never played it. I'd played Seven Wonders Duel, but never the original one. I still don't play it in person. I've just played it on Board Game Arena. Another one is probably Lisboa. It's the one Vital Lacerda game that I just know I would love. It's eluded me.
It's really good.
It's funny you saying stuff like Seven Wonders because, again, that's something we played so much when I got it with my family. And I'm like, oh, so maybe I've played games that are on other people's like bucket lists or blind spots. So yeah. So again, this doesn't have to be a particular game. It can be a type of game or an experience. Like if you're like, I want to play a mega game, or I would like to do tabletop RPGs or something like that. Like if that's something that you're into, we want to know because again, it's not up to us. It's up to you guys, the community. So please let us know over Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. We'd love to hear it. Speaking of the community, if you want to support this podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue, sign up and donate and get access to exclusive podcast episodes that we record just for you. But if you are not in a position to donate, please just support us by listening and telling your mates. We'd love you to spread the word of the Board Game Barbecue. You can go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review. We need to get someone to start ringing them out. Maybe we can draw short straws and work out who does that. You can use Spotify star rating as well. Of course, it only takes a short amount of time, but it means the world to us. Like I said before, you can get involved in the community by joining Facebook, following us on X, Instagram, and of course, we are uploading our episodes to YouTube. And anytime I'm in the host chair, I always talk about the incredible Discord community that we have. It is my second home. I've met so many awesome people there. I get to hang out there pretty much every night with some friends that I've met through this podcast and through the community. So there's conversations going on there. We had a really great talk about stuff that was going on in the footy. So much good stuff on Discord. So please get involved. All the links are in the show notes. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Sorry, Dana. I think that's what I'm going to go with now. Mate. Been replaced. Well, seeing as you are #fired up, what are you fired up about, Joe?
I have got the Ahoy expansions. Ahoy is one of those games that is like Root but simpler, and so and the expansions have new factions, new mechanics. So I'm really keen to give it a go and see what it's like. That's very exciting. So that's the board game stuff out of the way. What else is really exciting is I'm going to my first costume party as an adult for probably 10, 15 years. It's like a space theme party. So I'm just looking through now. I'm looking through some costume ideas. Any ideas, gang? What would you wear to a space theme party? A space or alien?
So my mum, God bless her, one time it was book week. And we were dressed up as something. I was like, I want to go as a spaceman. She's like, how am I going to dress as a spaceman? Out of shiny cardboard, she made me a spaceman suit.
That's so cool.
It was so good.
That's so cool.
And every so often I just have one of those moments where I'm feeling really emotional. I'm like, oh, my mum's so cool. Oh. She does so much stuff for me. So yeah, go as a dusty spaceman. That'd be funny.
I don't have the skills. Thank you. It's a very cute, nostalgic story, but I don't have your mum's skills to create something out of nothing.
Well, I'm sure she'd make it for you. She's retired now, so do all that. When's the party?
This Saturday.
The tournament. She did it in one night for me. So I'm
okay, all right. My initial thought. So my favorite sci-fi of all time is The Fifth Element. If you guys have seen The Fifth Element. She wears this strappy white costume when she escapes. Mila Jovovich escapes out of the whatever she is, which is very revealing. And I'll probably look like a baked ham, but we'll see how we go. What are you guys fired up about?
My last fired up segment kind of aged like milk because I said I was excited about the Timberwolves being in the playoffs and their absolute heartbreak. Something I have been fired up about all this week and is leading into PlayCon is like last year, Dan is returning with his exceptionally popular puzzles. So his really awesome puzzles and riddles that he did for PlayCon last year, he'll be doing again this year. And I've had the opportunity this week to playtest some of them. And I've got a few more to tuck into that I'm going to get to after this. So I'm really excited to do that. It's been really lovely. Also just chatting to him this week about them. It's been so lovely to catch up. So I've really enjoyed that. And I'm really excited because I'm at the final puzzles and how the whole thing's going to tie together. And from what I've seen of them already, I just know people at PlayCon are going to love them. And there's one that's going to absolutely do people's heads in, but it's great.
My fired up is for a game by some Aussie designers that I have actually met in person, and that is a game called The Gilded Realms. So this is by Sandtime Games, or Sandtime. So it's Ivan and Dale and their friend Michael. So they have, their game is out. It's. I've got it here. I still need to unbox it and all that type of stuff, but I'm excited to play that. So that's really exciting for them. They're super passionate about it, and if you're lucky enough to have a copy, I think it's a really, really cool game. So excited to play that, and of course. Don't know if I probably will be on the show again, but if I'm not, I cannot wait for PlayCon. It's like my now class as my annual holiday, so I get to go and catch up with all my friends from Sydney. I usually try and catch a rugby game with one of my friends, so I don't get to do that very often. So yeah, it's going to be an awesome time. So if I'm on the show again, I'll be saying that I'm fired up about PlayCon again, maybe another game. So yeah, that's what I'm fired up about. But that's it. That's it for the episode. I'm always remiss when I get to here and unfortunately, I have some sad news. And the last time I did that, people thought I was leaving because Mitch had just left. So I normally just go, I got some sad news that the episode's over. But I've stopped doing that now because I freaked the people out. And I even freaked some of the listeners out. So that does bring us to the end of the episode, and I can't wait to see you guys in just over a month, less than a month. I don't know, it'll be soon. So, yeah, and for all the rest of you, again, thank you for listening. Always love having a chat with you all, and I will see you on the next episode. Keep playing those games, and catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Made the joke that I was going to edit out your sizzle, and then I'm just going to cut in that you're leaving.
That's so good.
Sorry, I just had that thought.
So good.
And I couldn't get it. I couldn't stop myself from laughing.
Is that your way of kicking me off the podcast? Because one time I got dropped from the footy team after I read the paper. The coach didn't even tell me I was dropped. I read it in the paper. And
Oh
it
my
said,
God,
out.
that's
So
terrible.
I deserved it. I
It's
definitely.
like that scene from The Simpsons. Like, Connor, I like your hustle. That's why it was so hard to cut you.
But you'll cut. Yeah.